Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and first look at the Sabrent Rugged Thunderbolt 3 dual NVMe tool-free enclosure. You heard right, roughly $150 US. I'll include a link in the description. I just received it for review purposes from Sabrent, and I'm excited because yet again, they are pushing the envelope on high-speed storage. So this is just an enclosure for $150, but it gives you something that no other product on the market, at least to my knowledge, permits you to do, which is put two M.2 NVMe drives into a single Thunderbolt 3 enclosure. And I believe the data throughput tops out at 1,500 megabytes a second, so that's 1.5 gigs a second, which is crazy. And eventually, at least this is what I've been told, Sabrent will have this with NVMe drives pre-installed. So realistically, based on what I'm aware they have in their current lineup, this will likely end up being a 16 terabyte external enclosure, or drive, I should say. So pretty crazy. Let's go ahead and get this thing out of the package. And it does come with one of their rugged protectors as well. Those of you that have been asking me about the rugged protection, basically that rubber shield that it has, which in the past I unboxed one of these guys. I don't see them available on Sabrent's site for purchase. I have reached out to find out whether or not they will be available. They're good, not just for shock protection, but also for when these drives heat up, because inevitably they do. So I recommend them, but again, it's a matter of availability. It looks like this just opens up like this. And there are some other products from Sabrent, some new offerings that I'll be sharing with all of you. This wasn't the only thing that just came in, but definitely one of the more exciting ones, because if you're looking, again, to maximize your high-speed Thunderbolt 3 compliant storage. Remember, Sabrent does directly work with Intel, so they're not someone just working off of expired licenses. Then this is going to be the way to do it. So you can see already tool-free, as I mentioned, much like this Thunderbolt 3 tool-free external enclosure that I covered in the past. Good way to go if you're just looking to do a single drive. But if you want, again, maximum capacity, which right now, per Sabrent's own lineup, as I said, would be around 16 terabytes, because they do sell 8 terabyte internal drives, so you could throw two in here. It's just crazy to think of how far we've come, especially when you think about where mechanical drives that are external are topping out. I mean, this is challenging those foot forward and in a form factor and, again, throughput rate that we could just never imagine. So let's see what else is in the box. I'm expecting all of the cables that we'll need, and that's exactly what is coming up next. And all aluminum build on this. I mean, that's another thing I really like about Sabrent, is the build quality is just top notch. So let's see what we've got here. I likely will be sticking to 4 terabytes, or at least one 4 terabyte in here, in conjunction with another drive yet. I'm not sure. In this one, I have a 4 terabyte. So I could easily throw this in here. Gotta love the tool-free enclosures. They are great. And of course, the throughput, phenomenal, over 1 gig a second. And then in here, I've got an older drive from Sabrent. This, of course, higher speed capability, but if you have a motherboard to support it, that's a 1 terabyte drive. So these would be the easiest for me to just drop in there. I don't really want to break this is not a Thunderbolt 3 capable enclosure, by the way. So speed's not as fast, but basically the Pro level, which tops out at around somewhere between 600 and 800 megabytes a second. Not that that's a slouch by any means. So we've got a fairly large power brick here. That is the one caveat about this drive, is that I do not believe that it's going to operate without the DC input. So just part of being able to power what Sabrent has put together here, you are going to have a wall wart, a little power brick, but I don't think that's a big deal if, again, this is what you're after, which is maximizing your storage capacity. Of course, a Thunderbolt 3 cable is included. It looks like it's got, not sure exactly how long it is, but it looks like a decent length. So there we have it. Yeah, so not bad at all. Remember, the throw on these cables is something you have to be aware of, because throughput relies on that throw, and the longer you get, I'm not saying it'll deteriorate, but Sabrent clearly is keeping that in mind when they give you a Thunderbolt 3 cable. No-name manufacturers could say something is Thunderbolt 3 capable or certified, but use that term loosely because, again, I think the licenses have expired if you were not originally an official Intel partner like Sabrent. A lot of Chinese manufacturers say they're Thunderbolt 3, and you'll be surprised that the products they send you won't live up to it. We've got some pads here, I'm presuming, for the drive itself. Let's go ahead and pop it open and see what this looks like. And what I was mentioning before about these silicone covers is that they're great not just because of protecting the drive, but from a heat dissipation standpoint. You can see all the cuts on the side. I personally like to flip them over, at least on the two Q drives that I have from Sabrent, so that when they're operating, this way I know that there's a buffer between the aluminum and whatever surface I have them on. They just seem to vent better that way. So there's a look at the drive, again, bare, and you can see we've got two LEDs to let you know activity on drives 1 and 2. They are labeled 1 and 2. And then we have, of course, the Thunderbolt 3 port, the DC in, and an actual power button. So if you were wondering how this operates, now you know. So let's see if I can get this open. And there you have it. So pretty straightforward. 2 slots, as you would have imagined, for M.2 SSDs. Drop them in, and it should be plug and play, especially if you've already formatted the drives. If not, then of course, do so once you hook it up. And that's pretty much it. Of course, Windows and Mac compatible. I will only be using this. Actually, let's set it up right now, right? Why not? I will only be using this with specifically PC. I'm not a Mac user, but you never know what might happen in the future, so it's good that we have that flexibility. Go ahead and unlock this guy. Very simple. If you weren't aware, go ahead and put that down. And I really do love their tool-free drives. The Thunderbolt 3 one is great. I'm not sure if they have launched yet essentially a Q version, which would give you the flexibility of having, of course, Thunderbolt 3 capability as well as backwards compatibility, which would be ideal. And let's just pop this guy out if the magnet permits me to, which it should. Thought I just had it there because it should just come out. There we go. Whoops, not trying to do anything to this drive. So now I've got a 1 terabyte and a 4 terabyte. Now in a perfect world, as I said earlier, I would aim for 2 drives with the same capacity. Let's see if these guys pop out. Yeah, they do. So they just come out like that. So let's go ahead and start that on the other side since I already removed it. So you just want to slot that in. And these just slide out for those of you that are wondering. And go ahead and drop the 4 terabyte in. And so now I've created a nice little 5 terabyte combo. But again, personally, I would be going for the 4 and 4, but right now as it stands, for me to do that, I would need, unfortunately, to go a different route in terms of the actual, I would have to break open an external from Sabrent, which I don't really want to do. Now let's just see how this, I'm trying to figure out how this is going to actually sit there. I pulled these out thinking that that was the way to do it. I did not look at instructions. I think you all know that already from watching this video. But let's just see if I'm able. I don't want to damage anything. In fact, I may take this out just to give myself the room. And those thermal pads are there just to make sure the drives stay where they should, and so that when you open up the enclosure, you can actually get them off. It looks like, I feel like I got to keep it on. I thought I'd have to pop this off, which I did, as you saw, all of you, but it looks like we're better off leaving those in place. So let's try that. So I'm just going to go ahead, and because it's rubber, it should be a little more malleable, is what I'm thinking. So there we go, we're in. But, you know, I'm not positive. It does get tight. See, that's not going to work. So what I'm thinking is that somehow we've got to get that in. And that's not working. Maybe it's time to look at instructions. How about that? May as well, right? So, of course, the inventory we already went over and the process. So, step 4, at a 45-degree angle, insert the magnetic pins into the SSD notch and slide your SSDs and slide in your SSDs until they are properly seated. And then step 5 is make sure the magnetic pin clicks. So they're saying it should already be seated like I have right there. And then basically once we press in, it should pop in. But I'm not seeing that happening. So just to see something here, I'm going to remove this because we want to do this right. I don't want to mislead anyone here. So these seem to line up fine like that. But if you're coming down on it, I don't think this will actually clear the hole, but let's just see. No, it does. Okay, so then this should work, and I'm just being careful because I don't want to damage a drive, and just like all of you, it's the first time I'm looking at this. So we're at that 45, we're in all the way, and so now just pushing down on it, it should get in there. Let's see if I pick it up but I do not want to damage the 4 terabyte drive, clearly. Still not getting in there. So I'm wondering if I have it on the wrong, I don't think I do. I'm just trying to get this right here. Because if you damage this, it's obviously an expensive thing to damage. So it looks like I'm having a little trouble with this. I shouldn't be, because I was able just now to just pop this in, but remember when I just popped this in, coming in from above, it was sans drive. So that might be the reason. Yeah, I think that is the reason that it was easier, because it's not just popping in that way. So this is going to take a little bit of finagling, as they say. I'm not exactly sure how to really position it without damaging the drive. Doing my best. I don't want to mess up the controller here. I don't want to mess up the drive. So I'm going to just try this one last time. And if it doesn't pop through, then that's pretty much it. The other approach I might try taking is actually slotting this in first, even though that's not what is advised, because that might be easier, frankly. So if that's in there right now, even though this is not what is recommended, I'm going to just try it and see if I'm able to just basically pull this back. The problem is my finger is too big, so it's really not going to work out even as best I try. So do not want to damage the drive. I'm not really seeing a great way to get this in there. And it definitely can't just pop in. So I'm going to blame myself that this is user error on my behalf, that I'm not seeing a way to do this. Sorry that the video is getting extended here, but I'm just not seeing a way to get this on, oddly enough. Now maybe, I mean, I know I'm putting this through at the right point. And the thing is, these are not, it's saying they're magnetic, but they are totally rubber. So unlike this, which I think is more of the magnetic, when I see this from an angle, it just does not appear to be catching, and for good reason. I mean, it's just not, it's not able. Now, if I come in at an angle, I mean, I'm trying everything. I think you know that already. Oh, there we go. So, all right, so the key, I'm sorry it took as long as it did. The key is that when you're pressing the drive down, make sure to put pressure on the far edge of the rubber cap, and it looks like that will do it. Because now it looks like it's seated, it looks like it's fine. Let's go ahead and do this with another, and that will be verification for us that I figured out, you know, it took a rocket scientist, right? That I figured out how to do this. So again, you want to get this at the correct point, which is that top notch. And then as you press down, come on, I was able to get one. I should be able to get them both. Again, you want to just put pressure at the far tip. So you can see I'm putting the pressure, or at least I'm trying again. I was able to get one. We should be able to get the other. Should be able to. It was not a fluke. What this is proving to me, though, is that, there we go. Oh, no. Is that once you get this seated the way you want, with the drives you want, you probably want to leave it intact. So this one is giving me a little more of an issue. I thought because I got one, I would easily get the other, but apparently not. I feel like if we come in on an angle, it should make it. It's almost like you're pushing the rubber insert this way, even though it's attached, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Oh, there we go. All right, so that took long enough, 16 minutes in, but there you have it. That is the way you do it, folks. So just be aware, my nail's coming apart a little bit. That is the route you want to go. So basically just make sure you apply the pressure at the far point of the rubber tip and it'll click in. You know, it's as long as they're sitting flush like that, you should be good. And then those rubber pads obviously are there to buffer. Inserting this should be, again, fairly straightforward if I can remember which way the orientation was, but it shouldn't be too complicated. It looks like the locking mechanism is on this end, so I don't have the luxury of watching this in reverse, but pop it in like that and go ahead and lock it up, and now I have a 5 terabyte drive. Now, again, I may end up throwing 2 4 terabytes in here. I'd have to break one of the 4 terabyte extremes I have, but then that would make this an 8 terabyte. And if you are interested in having you know, as much storage capacity as possible and you're being budget conscious, then I think this is a really smart route to go. And that's pretty much it. There you have it. Took longer than expected, but I'm glad I was able to do it. Going to blame that on me, a little bit of user error. Again, this is for those of you that, you know, want to have as much storage as possible and are looking to do so, again, in a tool-free enclosure that you can take anywhere easily. I want to say swap these out once you know what you're doing, because I feel like now that I do know what I'm doing, I won't have a problem taking it in and out and getting something out. But I have to say, this may still be your regular preference, the tool-free Thunderbolt 3 drive enclosure that they make, because there is a nice flexibility to it being powered by Thunderbolt 3, whereas this, I'm just going to give it a test. I imagine that it's just not going. Let's see if I can just grab a laptop here. This video's long enough already, right? Let's just see if I hook it up right now. May as well take it the distance since I've brought you all this far to see whether or not it's going to be recognized being powered solely by a laptop. So let me just go ahead. This is the HP Spectre 14T. Let's move some of these things out of the way. Move them over. I don't think it's going to power on its own, but let's just see. I'm going to plug it in, and we'll see if it's able to power it. Powering it on. And it makes sense that it wouldn't, and yeah, it's not. It makes sense that it would not be able to power it on since, again, we're talking about a drive with 2 drives in it. Let me go ahead and I'll just put this down, and since you've all been here long enough, let's just see what this ends up looking like, shall we? Oh, without me destroying anything, go ahead and throw this down. Not the best orientation of things, but it'll work. And let's get the DC hookup going. And this way you'll see the drive light up. And I'm just glad they're doing things like this. Unfortunately, no one else in the business is doing anything innovative. I mean, this used to be Samsung's bread and butter, and if you follow Sammy, you know that they've kind of fallen asleep on this, and I don't really understand it at all, because this is clearly a good idea, to say the least. And the other device that I'll be sharing with all of you soon is designed for cloning, which I think is another really smart thing. So I've hooked up DC power now. We're hooked up to a Thunderbolt 3 port. Let me connect this to a wall outlet, which hopefully I have something here that is available. Bear with me as I jump down the rabbit hole. And we should be in business once I get this in. Looks like we got power, and the drive should have power as well now when I hit the on button right here. How are we looking? All right, I'm not seeing anything happening here. Make sure everything is seated properly. Up. Let's see. Well, doesn't seem like it's powering on. Make sure I have everything seated properly with the outlet. Oh, there it is. And it did power on just now. So it just took a second. It's reading drive 1. You can see the status light there on drive 1. And let's see how it IDs it, shall we? Get rid of that and just go ahead and take a look. Go to File Explorer. I know you probably cannot see this on camera, and this will likely be a video that I'll do at another time. And so right now, what it is seeing is, I see one drive. It looks like it's detecting the other, is what it appears. So it's seeing the 4 terabyte, but I don't see that it has recognized the other. Let me just check here. It looks like now it is, okay, no, it did detect both. So it is seeing both drives independently. So that's great. So it works as advertised. You can see right here, if I bring the screen into frame, let's not snag any cables. You can see right there clearly, hopefully, that we've got E and D. You can see D is 931 gigs and E is 3.63. So a little bit of, a few files there on D and nothing on E. If I go ahead and do a transfer, let's just see. Give me a second here. I will try to do a transfer from one drive to the next. Let's see what performance from the internal drives to each other is. I think that's a pretty good test out of the box to do. So now, these are all just videos that I have lined up. Let's just split screen this. And we'll do this. Okay, so now I have 2 folders open, as you can see. So let's just go ahead. Now I did not, another thing you have to do is you do have to provision this. So let me do that. Video is getting longer as I do this, but it's not a bad thing. Let's go ahead, make sure I have enough time left on this battery that I'm shooting with. Let's go ahead and actually make sure that we have to go into Device Manager, bear with me here, and make sure that it's actually operating at peak performance. So that should be under disk drives. And so it sees them separately. It sees a Rocket Q, and the question is, I believe it's this, the NVMe. Actually, that may be the drive itself. So with that in mind, I may be incorrect about that. Let's just make sure that both of these, the policies are set to best performance. And I think that is the key. You want to enable write caching and hit OK. So that's done. And now do that with the Rocket Q as well. Policies, better performance, enable write caching, and that's done. Now that we've done that, okay, because the other drive was the HP 1 terabyte drive. Let's go ahead and open up those 2 again. get them side by side, and let's try doing a transfer from one drive to the other. So this is just an old, see if any of these are larger files. These are all roughly 3 gigs, 7 gigs, 4, let's see if there's anything large here. 2, there's nothing too big here. This one was 7. So let's go ahead and try dragging that over, and let's see what performance is like. So right now it's only going, all right, so it peaked at 1 gigabyte a second. Hopefully that was viewable. And if it wasn't, I will make sure it is by bringing a file over to the other side. So this is a 25 gig file. All right, let's see what happens when we send that over to the other. Now that's starting at a little over 200 megs, but let's see what happens. Give it a second. And you should be able to see performance is peaking now. Remember, this was 26, a little under 26 gigs, hovering right under 1 gig a second. And there you have it. So that was pretty quick. And again, that was a 25.7 gig file. So fairly promising. That was just a quick, it's really a demo, unboxing and demo. Very cool. And, you know, it's warm to the touch, but not too hot. And considering that was, you know, a nearly 26 gig transfer plus the other, we did over 30 gigs on this little guy. So pretty impressive in my opinion. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe and please stay safe. Later.